Good morning, my friends. Good morning, and welcome to another week, another episode of PB Reads the Bible. We started the week yesterday, didn't we? Another episode of PB Reads the Bible, and this is episode 18 on our journey through the book of 1 Samuel. So today we will be looking at chapter 19 of that book. But what is PB Reads the Bible, and who am I? Well, I'm Pastor Brian, the pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, aka PB, and this is PB Reads the Bible, where I, read the Bible, usually a chapter, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what it is. And we have gone through, I think this is our 13th book. I lost my paper. I'm gonna have to go back through that. It's somewhere on my desk, most likely. Excuse me. Now, some of you have been going along with me through this whole thing, and you've gone through all of those books of the Bible with me. Others may be joining us just for the first or second time. Welcome. Welcome to both. Excuse me one moment. Welcome to both, whether you're a first timer with us or you've been with us through it all. I appreciate the fact that you're taking time out of your busy lives to join me. Some of you are doing that live right at the same time here at 9 o'clock, 9:02 on Tuesday morning, June 28th. Oof. Month is almost gone, while others are unable to join live, and so you're joining us at some other time today or sometime this week or weeks from now, who knows. Welcome. And again, I appreciate the fact that you take your time, take time out of your lives to do this, and that you find it worthy. I do know that some people are watching live because I'm seeing a number showing up on the screen, but that's all I see is a number, and I'd like to know who it is so that I can keep you folks in my prayers, and that we can surround each other with prayer. Excuse me. So go ahead and check in. Let me know that you're watching. And even if you're not watching live, if you're watching some other time, please still let me know. I just like to know that you're finding it worthwhile, and just makes it easy. You can always send me a text to 570-351-1619 if you don't want to put it out there on Facebook or on YouTube, which I am now able to watch both. So if you're watching on YouTube, on YouTube, I'll be able to see if you're making comments there as well. At least I think I'll be able to see that you're making comments there as well. PB reads and MR listens. Ah, you are so sweet, Marcia. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Also, in the comments section, let me know what's on your hearts and your minds, so that not only I, but we can keep each other surrounded. This is a small group. We're a small group. We're separated by distance, but that's it. So we're together in this fashion, and we are living life together. So go ahead and share those things as well, and we will keep each other surrounded in love and surrounded in prayer. Let's see what else is going on. So yes, today is Tuesday, second day of this week, and yes, live again tomorrow. For Wednesdays, I will be doing a recording for Thursday. Yeah, for Thursdays. As far as you're concerned, it'll be live. It'll be going live at 9 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube, and on the website. But it'll actually be a recording that I'll be doing, and I'll probably be doing that recording tomorrow in preparation for Thursday. I believe next week is live all 4 days. And as I mentioned yesterday, we're starting a new worship series on Sunday, and I'm pretty excited by it. I think it's going to be a great worship series, all about the Exodus and the wilderness. We might know some of the details about the Exodus. There are certain images, I'm sure, that come to mind when you hear that, or certain things. But there's so much more to it, that I believe, than what we traditionally talk about. So we're going to spend 8 weeks talking about the Exodus and the wilderness aspect. And Why is it important? Why is it important to the Jewish faith? Why is it important to the Christian faith? Why should it be important to the Christian faith if it's not? And what difference does it make to me personally? Those are the kind of things that we will, I believe we will be answering and addressing those throughout the 8 weeks. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great. John and Cindy checking in. Excuse me. Good morning to you as well. Good morning to you as well. Now, for some reason, sometimes Facebook doesn't give me messages. In fact, yesterday, as soon as I finished, I went in and looked, and there were a couple comments there, messages there from folks that I didn't see. They didn't show up while we were live. So I apologize if I don't respond immediately to any of your comments. If that happens, please believe that I'm not ignoring you. It's just a case of the computer, the Facebook, YouTube not giving me them directly to you, or giving them directly to me. And so I will get back to you as soon as I can afterwards, or at least like your posts, your comments afterwards. Excuse me, it is just water. So where was, oh yeah, the exciting worship. I do think it's going to be a really exciting series. I think it's going to be a great series. Got started on setting the sanctuary up, doing some stuff to it. I guess I have big ideas, so I can't do it all in one day. I'm doing a little bits here and there to get it all ready for Sunday, and it will be ready for Sunday. We can always use some extra stuff though, too, I'm sure. So if you have some items around your house that you'd be willing to let us borrow for the 8 weeks that you think would help give the imagery of Egypt and the wilderness and the desert and all that, hey, let me know. As long as you're in reasonable distance, we'll come borrow them for a few weeks. In particular, of course, I'm looking for like palm trees, I guess you'd say, but we'll manage with what we've got if we don't get it all. Good morning, honey. Must be done with walk time. or you're in walk. You're walking as we speak and listening in. So join us for worship. And if you want a little bit more information about it, or and kind of see how it's going to play out, check out the video that we posted here on that we posted on Facebook. I'm not sure if it's on YouTube. I don't think it posted to YouTube, but it did post to Facebook. We can always change that too. About our next worship series that posted on Sunday, this past Sunday. So if you just scroll down through our feed, you can watch that video again. It did run during worship this past Sunday as well, but we put it up there separately just so it'd be easier to find should you want to watch it, or should you want to watch it again. Good music in the background is Matt. I have that vase in the basement from Morocco. I like that idea, hon. I think that would give that imagery of, oh, wonderful, great. Yes, we will borrow that. Remind me also to look for something else in the basement, in one of the drawers of the cabinet. I think I might have something in there. Matt did a great job on the song "Go Down Moses" to help heighten that idea, and hopefully we'll be using that at some point as well during our series. We might make that like the last week or something like that. Get the congregation used to it maybe before we actually do it. Don't know how familiar folks are with the song. Anyway, that's enough talking about that, and I've given people the opportunity to join in here as well. So let's move on, shall we? Chapter 19, not a super long chapter. Many of these chapters really aren't all that long, but I think there's good stuff to talk about. And so let's jump into it. Chapter 19. Saul spoke with his son Jonathan and with all his servants about killing David. But Saul's son Jonathan took great delight in David. Pause. Pause. I know it was only one verse, but pause. Because right off the bat, we need to see what's happening. There's been a shift from chapter 18 to chapter 19. Remember, chapter 18, Saul wants to kill David, but it's all underhanded. It's all it's all in secret. It's all in secret, and he's trying to use others to accomplish the task, in particular the Philistines. Right? None of it worked. We see now we see a shift. What we're seeing is Saul's descent into what? Well, quite literally, we're seeing Saul's descent into madness, but we're also seeing his descent morally, and moving farther and farther away from the type of person he was anointed to be. He was anointed to be king. He was which, as king, especially at this time, from God's point of view in particular, has a responsibility of taking care of the people, and not themselves, taking care of the people. And Saul in particular has this task of delivering them from the oppression of the Philistines. He hasn't been able to live up to that. And now we see he's not able to live up to the other one as well. He's more interested in killing a particular person than he is in taking care of the people at all. And he's more concerned with himself, his ego, and his jealousy of David. So we're seeing this shift. There's this shift from trying to do things in secret to being very, very overt about it. And who is he speaking to? He's speaking to two of the groups, or two of the people, one person in one group. That chapter 18 was very specific and explicit with stating that they loved David, right? We're told as soon as Jonathan begins, as soon as 18 begins, we're told that Jonathan loved David. And as the chapter goes along, we find out that Saul's servants love David, right? So Saul, who we must admit or say in fear and anxiety and hatred of David and wants to kill David, he's speaking to people who love David and therefore presumably wouldn't want to see him killed. We also see the use of a word and we may not catch it if it's not pointed out, because I didn't catch it either. Jonathan took great delight in David, which is a word that Saul had instructed his servants to say to David about himself. He said, tell them the king has great delight, is delighted in you, which was a lie. But here we presumably see it being used in a truthful fashion, that Jonathan truly is delighted with David. Oh, good morning, Don. Good to have you joining us as well. It's kind of interesting, Don and Sue. My memories today were from 10 years ago with the moving truck packing us, having arrived in Einan to pack us up for our move to Paxtonville. And Don, you were one of the people that had commented on the picture that day. Anyway, so we're seeing Saul's descent into madness, and we're seeing him trying to use people who definitely don't agree with him. Especially his son Jonathan. Sorry, I got something in my eye now. Continuing. Verse 2, Jonathan told David, my father Saul is trying to kill you. Therefore, be on guard tomorrow morning. Stay in a secret place and hide yourself. I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are, and I will speak to my father about you. If I learn anything, I will tell you. Jonathan spoke well of David to his father Saul, saying to him, the king should not sin against his servant David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his deeds have been of good service to you. for he took his life in his hand when he attacked the Philistine, and Yahweh brought about a great victory for all Israel. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then will you sin against an innocent person by killing David without cause? Pause. Probably should have paused earlier, but that's okay. So Jonathan tells David what's going on and tells him to hide in a certain place. And I'm going to talk to my father near where you're hiding. So we would say intentionally being close enough to David, presumably that David could overhear the conversation. Jonathan said, I'm going to come and tell you everything that was said anyway. But the setup certainly seems to be that he even wants David to hear what's taking place and what's happening and what his father says and tries to decide. And Jonathan immediately, as he's speaking to his father, tries to get him to relent, tries to turn him around, tells him, David hasn't done anything wrong against you. Everything that David has done has been for you as your servant and has been for the benefit of Israel. And God, Yahweh, is on his side. All good things. He said, don't sin in this fashion. Don't sin against this fashion and bring blood upon, bring innocent blood upon your household. We might say, and he probably doesn't actually use those words, but that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying about. We can see in this a precursor, a foretaste, a foreshadowing of a similar situation that David is going to be going through, where David is the one who is seeking vengeance against someone. And I think I can't remember the name. We'll get to it. I believe it is in 1 Samuel, but it's toward the end. It's like chapter 25 or something like that. So we'll probably get to it in a couple of weeks. And the man's widow, or no, not the man's widow, the man's wife, comes to David and speaks softly to David and gets him to relent, saying, don't sin in this fashion. Don't bring this blood down upon yourself and upon your household. And David does relent. So, but that's what Jonathan is trying to do with Saul, trying to get him to avoid all of this and avoid bringing down the innocent blood upon himself and upon the family. So what happens? Does Saul listen? Does Saul relent? Verse 6, Saul heeded the voice of Jonathan. Saul swore, as Yahweh lives, he shall not be put to death. So Jonathan called David and related all these things to him. Jonathan then brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as before. Pause. So Saul wants to get David out of his presence, but now he's being brought back into his presence as before. And Saul makes this vow before Yahweh, uses Yahweh's name in everything, as part of his vow to no longer try to kill David. How long will this last? Well, not very. Again, there was war, and David went out to fight the Philistines. He launched a heavy attack on them so that they fled before him. Then an evil spirit from Yahweh came upon Saul as he sat in his house with his spear in his hand while David was playing music. Saul sought to pin David to the wall with the spear, but he eluded Saul so that he struck the spear into the wall. David fled and escaped that night. Pause. So it didn't last. It did not last at all. Now, let us be careful. Let us be careful again, because I know I said this before. It sounds the evil spirit from Yahweh, right? Evil spirit from Yahweh came upon Saul. They obviously had a different understanding, and the wording is probably had different meaning than it does today. And we might think, oh, God is intentionally making Saul act this way. No, that wouldn't be the case. And I don't even think the author was trying to state that case. But all things come from God. So a sickness, an illness is from God, not necessarily as punishment, not necessarily as part of a plan, but that's how it happens. And so any kind of a mental illness, psychological issue would also be considered to have come from God. we know differently, right? We know differently. We understand differently. We understand much differently than that. But rather think that God was that this was part of the plan. Perhaps it's even easier to think that God's spirit, yes, a good spirit, but because of how Saul is descending into madness, he is actually making it an evil spirit, a bad spirit. So it's a mental thing. It's psychosis of some form is taking over. We're seeing his descent into madness. I've said that a few times today, I know, but I'm really not coming up with better words to describe what's happening to Saul. That's really what it is. His anxiety, his nervousness over David, and all of which is really without basis, as Jonathan has tried to express to him. Not tried to, as Jonathan has expressed to him. It is affecting him mentally. And his inability to do the things that he was called to do are compounding the issue. And he sees David being the type of king, even though he's not king yet, that Saul was called to be. And so all these things are working against him. Now, these couple verses here, we read this same story in chapter 18. Most scholars agree that it's the same incident. It's not two incidents. It was originally just here, but someone at some point, one of the editors at some point took it and duplicated it and inserted it into chapter 18. So, maybe it really doesn't belong in chapter 18. It really belongs here because it's showing, mostly chapter 18 was Saul trying to use others to kill David. But now in chapter 9, and everything was hidden and underhanded and secret and covert. But now in chapter 19, things are becoming more overt. And as a result, this fits better here than it does there. Okay, it fits better here than it does there anyway. Anyway, so continuing, verse 11. Saul sent messengers to David's house to keep watch over him, planning to kill him in the morning. Pause. Again, we're seeing this very overtly. Saul had used servants previously as part of his deception, tried to lie to David and to try to, to do his will that way. But now he's using them very overtly and actively to keep watch over him, planning to kill him in the morning. Continuing, David's wife, Michal, told David, if you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be killed. Pause. So remember, Michal, chapter 18, a couple different times mentioned her love for David. And again, I'm not told how his response was, what he felt about her, but her love is coming out here again. So Saul's plans are being thwarted by his children, by those people who love David. So Michal let David down through the window. He fled away and escaped. Michal took an idol and laid it on the bed. She put a net of goat's hair on its head and covered it with the clothes. When Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, he is sick. Then Saul sent the messengers to see David for themselves. He said, bring him up to me in the bed that I may kill him. When the messengers came in, the idol was in the bed with the covering of goat's hair on its head. Saul said to Michal, why have you deceived me like this and let my enemy go so that he has escaped? Michal answered Saul, he said to me, let me go. Why should I kill you? Pause. And we're seeing this descent from Saul out of any kind of morality and decency, wanting a sick person brought to him on his bed so that I could kill him myself. Although there wasn't really a person there, Michal had lied. So we see Michal lie twice. First, she lies and says, "Oh, David's sick. He's sick in bed. He can't come out to play." But then we also see her lie directly to her father. Oh, he said he was going to kill me if I didn't help him escape you. So the lying, deceit, which we're always told are not good things, but she did her lies obviously for a good purpose. For a good purpose, they were to save life, to save David's life, and presumably to save her own life as well, having having done something against her father. Now, what's interesting, and I don't remember the scholar that says it. Adele Berlin. Adele Berlin puts it this way. What's interesting about this is the differences between Jonathan and Michal, and how they help David, what they are. Jonathan uses his words. He uses rhetoric. He speaks to his father and coaxes him and persuades him to stop this foolishness, basically to protect David's life, which it did work only briefly. Should have said this earlier too, so I'll come back to that. But he uses words. Michal uses actions. She assists David, lowers him out the window. She puts this fake body in the bed to imitate a human being. And what Adele Berlin says is they're playing opposite roles. Jonathan is using the typically feminine role of speech. A woman wouldn't act. A woman would only use words, whereas a man would act, and yet Michal is the one that is acting, that is doing things. So that's interesting. They're kind of reversed in how they're doing that. But back to what I should have said earlier about Saul's promise to with Jonathan, that Jonathan said, convinced him to not, to not try to kill David because he was innocent, because he was good. And Saul swears that okay, yep, I swear in the name of Yahweh that I won't do it. And yet, 2 verses later, not even, whatever it was, 2 verses later, he tries to kill David with the spear. Walter Brueggemann says that he is, as opposed to, let me first say this, as opposed to the vow and the promise and the swear that Saul had previously done that almost cost Jonathan his life, and how firm he was in keeping that vow. Walter Brueggemann says seems to be more interested and he's stronger in keeping a vow that would end life than in keeping a vow that would preserve life. That's pretty interesting. I think that's pretty interesting. Okay, so continuing, picking up from there with verse 18. Now David fled and escaped. He came to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. He and Samuel went and settled at Naioth. Pause. Naioth, although it's described in both NIV and NRSV as a city, as a town name, it probably wasn't. It's probably just it doesn't seem to have that context in the original, so I don't know why they do this. But the best commentators that I've read said it's not really a place so much as perhaps a group of tents, like just where a group of tents might be. A community of prophets we see here within the town of Ramah or near the town of Ramah. So it's not like it's another town. It's really just Ramah, but like a neighborhood within it. Many communities have those, right? You've got a particular neighborhood within a town. I haven't been here in Waynesboro long enough to really understand. Beartown may not really be a community, but it's part of Washington Township, and it's just called that way. Back in Nepa, there's Archibald is the name of the community, but within Archibald, there's a neighborhood called Frogtown. So why. It's not its own town. It's just that if you live in that area, you live in Frogtown. You really live in Archibald, and you get what I'm saying, right? So that's kind of what Naioth was, just where these tents were probably set up. Get a finger ready here. Okay. Saul was told, David is at Naioth in Ramah. Then Saul sent messengers to take David. When they saw the company of the prophets in a frenzy, with Samuel standing in charge of them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also fell into a prophetic frenzy. When Saul was told, he sent other messengers, and they also fell into a frenzy. Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they also fell into a frenzy. Then he himself went to Ramah. He came to the great well that is in Seku. He asked, excuse me, he asked, where are Samuel and David? And someone said, they are at Naioth in Ramah. He went there toward Naioth in Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him. As he was going, he fell into a prophetic frenzy until he came to Naioth in Ramah. He also stripped off his clothes, and he also fell into a frenzy before Samuel. He lay naked all that day and all that night. Therefore, it is said, is Saul also among the prophets? Verse 20, or chapter 20, verse 1a, really finishes this story. David fled from Naioth in Ramah. Okay. They put the end of the chapter in the wrong spot. So that's end of chapter 19. So we see David fleeing before Samuel. He goes to Samuel and the prophets, and Saul finds out he's there, and he sends a group of his servants. They fall into a prophetic frenzy because of the Spirit of God. Another group, same thing. A third group, same thing. Finally, Saul goes up himself, and on his way, the Spirit of God descends upon him, and he goes into a prophetic frenzy. Although because of his mental illness, it's probably not the same kind of prophetic frenzy. It's he becomes a raving lunatic, as we might, as has been used, probably not a politically correct term anymore, a raving madman. So much so that he strips off all his clothes and he falls before Samuel and is naked all day and all night. His descent into madness is complete at this point. So what do we see? What do we see here? We have these several tales throughout chapter 19 of Saul's plotting. 4 different ways, 4 different times that Saul wanted to kill David. Each of his plans is disrupted, is interfered with by someone. Or by something in one case. First, he wants to kill David, but his son, Jonathan, talks him out of it. So his plans are thwarted by his son, Jonathan. Then we have him trying to kill David himself by throwing the spear at him, but David's agility, his ability to move, he gets out of the way, and therefore his agility thwarts his Saul's plans. Third, we have him trying to kill David, and his plans are thwarted by his own daughter, Michal, by her actions. Finally, we have him trying to go to Ramah to kill him there in front of Samuel and all the others. And again, his plans are thwarted, not by Samuel, but by Yahweh. By the Lord God Almighty thwarts him. So we see him being thwarted by his son, by David himself, by David's agility, by his daughter Michal, and ultimately by Yahweh. So what do we see from this? We see that all things are lining up against Saul severely. And what can we say about, well, not so much about David, but about Jonathan's, Michal, and presumably then about Yahweh? That key word that we've used multiple times, chapters 18 and again today, the idea of love. Jonathan protected David because he loved him. Michal protected David because she loved him, and Yahweh protected David because he loved him, because David was a man after Yahweh's own heart. Meaning maybe he thought like David thinks and acts like God, or that God's heart was directed towards David, that it was, that kind of thing. It could be read and understood in both of those contexts. At the same time, I don't think we have to pick one or the other as well. But and ultimately we see Saul really is no longer king. He is just a madman. His descent into madness is complete at this point, lying naked before Samuel and all these other prophets and all that. What is going to happen next? Well, we'll take a look at chapter 20 tomorrow morning. Again, folks, I'm humbled that you follow this. I'm humbled that you watch this, or that you listen to this as you're walking or doing things. The fact that some of you watch it at like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning to try to get caught up with them just blows me away. The fact that God is able to use me to say something that you find worthy is awesome. It truly is. It truly is. So, my friends, I pray once again that this episode has been beneficial to you, that you've learned something or relearned something, that God has spoken to you through what we've said or read this morning. If you have any questions, you can always put them in there. I'll go back in and look. You can send me the text again, 570-351-1619. I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. As you go about your days, not just today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, both physical and spiritual, open to everything God is doing in your lives and in the lives of those around you, because we do have a living, loving, active God that we serve. When you see it, when you hear it, say, "Thank you, Papa," and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed. Bye.